The headlines made it sound distant. Another fallen idol, another lawsuit, another ex-employee accusing Will Smith of grooming, harassment, and something ugly that happened on tour. People argued in the comments, picked sides, called it clout chasing or karma. They only saw screenshots and statements. They didn't see the room. They didn't smell the chemical air or notice the backpack that wasn't mine, the HIV meds with someone else's name, the note promising just us at 5:30. I was there. I was his violinist. And the night before that lawsuit existed, Will Smith walked into my hotel room and told me to perform, while something else watched us from the corner. By the time I understood he wasn't the only one I was playing for, it was already choosing who got to walk out. People think this started with Brian. They think the story begins when his name hit the blogs. Will Smith sued by tour violinists for harassment, grooming, Vegas incident, all those headlines stacked on top of each other like a scoreboard. They saw the screenshot of his statement, the breakdown of the lawsuit, the details about the hotel room and the note. They don't know there was someone standing in that same kind of light before him. Me. I don't say my name anymore when I talk about this. It's easier to live in the shadow of the other violinist than to try to compete with a headline. All you need to know is that before Brian King Joseph was ever hired, before his story blew up, I was the one holding a violin for Will Smith. Not for long, but long enough. Before any of this, my life was regular. Not bad, not great. Teaching kids after school, church gigs on Sundays, studio sessions when a rapper decided they wanted some live strings like cinematic type. Rent was always 1 month away from being a problem. My biggest audience was my phone. Like everybody else around my age, I grew up with Will's face everywhere. Fresh Prince making reruns feel new, big summer movies, soundtracks that played in the background of everything. He felt permanent, like a building. You didn't think about him falling. Then, like everyone else, I watched the cracks, jokes about his marriage, Jada's entanglement, the Oscar slap replayed from 12 angles, memes where he was the punchline instead of the hero. People online split into teams. Some called him broken. Some called him a legend defending his wife. I stayed quiet and kept practicing. Famous men falling apart had nothing to do with me, until suddenly it did. The email came on a Wednesday afternoon. I remember because my last student had just left, and I was sitting in the empty practice room, smelling dust and resin, counting cash that wasn't enough. From Tour Coordination, Trayball Studios. Subject, violinist, confidential opportunity. I opened it expecting a scam. It wasn't. They said they were putting together a small live band for a series of shows with Will Smith. Intimate, story-driven, focused on healing and truth. Someone had sent them a clip of me. They liked my tone. Was I available for a call? I just stared at the screen. I'd been chasing something like this for years. Not this exactly, nobody plans for Will Smith tour, but something that would drag me out of tiny rooms and into real stages. I wrote back, yes. 3 letters that felt heavier than anything I'd put in an email before. The call was supposed to come later this week. It came that night. Blocked number. I almost didn't answer. Hello? Is this my violinist? I knew the voice right away. You would too. It had that same rhythm from all the interviews and movies. Easy smiling like you were already on his side. This is me, I said. This is Will, he said, like my brain hadn't already filled that in. I saw your videos. You're special, man. The way you play, the way you move with it. Most people just hit notes. You make people feel something. Special. It's a small word until someone like that says it. Then it sits in your chest and rearranges furniture. Thank you, I managed. I appreciate that. I don't say that lightly, he said. I've been doing this a long time. I don't connect with everyone, but I connected with you. I think we have something, I don't know, man, something I don't have with anybody else right now. I remember looking around my tiny practice room while he talked, at the peeling posters, the scuffed music stand, the fluorescent light buzzing overhead. and feeling like I'd fallen through a crack into someone else's life. He described the shows, smaller venues, no giant movie-style set pieces, just him, a band, and stories about what he'd been through. He kept saying words like healing, truth, second chance. I want the music to feel honest, he said. No tracks, no fake. I want you up there with me, visible, close, so people can see what we have. I didn't ask what we meant. I was too busy trying not to sound like a fan. I'm all in, I said. Whatever you need. He laughed softly. That's what I like to hear. Just remember this is a door, okay? Doors don't stay open forever. When I open one for somebody, they either walk through or I close it and move on. Don't let fear make you miss it. When the call ended, the room was quiet again. Same walls, same smell of dust and old wood, same buzzing light. But I was different. The first rehearsal was in a studio in North Hollywood that had no sign, just a black door and a keypad. Inside, everything was low and dark and expensive. Cables everywhere. People with headsets moving like they'd done all this 1,000 times before. String? Someone shouted. Yeah, I said. Will wants you up front. Not the artist, not Mr. Smith. Will. Like we were already on a first-name basis. When he walked in, the whole room adjusted. I don't know how else to say it. People straightened, heads turned, conversations ended mid-sentence. It was like gravity shifted. He smiled like he'd been expecting me his whole life. There he is, he said, pointing. My guy. Come here, man. He hugged me like we were old friends, not a quick pat on the back, full chest to chest, his hand pressing into the middle of my back, holding on just a second longer than I expected. You ready to change your life? He whispered. I didn't know what to say, so I just laughed. That's something you do a lot around him. Laugh when you're not actually sure what's funny. We ran songs for hours. He'd stop sometimes and just listen, eyes locked on me while I played. When he liked something, he'd clap loud, call everyone's attention over. Y'all see what my man is doing? He'd say. That's special. That right there, that's what I need next to me. By the end of that day, his team had started calling me his violinist. Like that was my whole identity. His violinist needs better monitors. His violinist should be on Will's floor at the hotel. His violinist rides in the second SUV. On the surface, it felt like safety, like I'd finally been moved from the edge of the room to the center. But there was one moment, alone in the green room, that didn't feel like any of the stories people tell about getting their big break. Everyone else had gone to grab food. It was just me and him. I was wiping down my strings. He was sitting across from me, not on his phone, not reading, not doing anything, just watching me. How old are you really, he asked. 30, I said. He nodded slowly. Old enough to know what losing a shot feels like, he said. Young enough that you still think you have time to waste. I don't give this kind of access to everybody. You and me? He pointed between us. We have something, don't mess that up. I told myself it was just an intense pep talk, an actor being dramatic, a man trying to sound wise after the world had watched him fall. Sitting here now, after the headlines about Brian, after Vegas, after everything, I hear those same words replay in my head differently. Access, special. Don't mess that up. Back then I thought they were promises. Now I know they were warnings. The first leg of the tour felt like winning the lottery and slowly realizing no one told you what the prize actually costs. We started small, soft launch shows in a few US cities. No press allowed, no official cameras. Just Will, a handful of us in the band, and a crowd that looked like they'd come to a revival more than a concert. People cried before he even spoke. They held up signs that said things like, "We forgive you, and you still saved my life." On stage, he was the version of himself everyone wanted back. Funny, vulnerable, apologizing without ever saying exactly what for. The fall from grace was something he hinted at, not named. It was like watching a man direct his own redemption arc in real time. Off stage, there was less distance than I expected. The first night when we wrapped up, I headed toward the shuttle with the rest of the band. One of the managers cut in front of me. "Where you going?" he asked. "Van, right?" He shook his head and jerked his thumb toward the black SUVs near the loading dock. "Will wants you with him. Second truck. You're his violin." His. The word stuck out. I climbed into the back seat of the second SUV, still sweaty from the show. A minute later, the door opened and Will slid in beside me, smelling like cologne and stage lights and the kind of money you never really understand if you didn't grow up with it. "You killed it tonight," he said, bumping my shoulder with his. "You feel that energy?" "Yeah," I said. "Crowd was crazy." He shook his head. "I'm not talking about them," he said. "I'm talking about us. That thing we got. People can feel that. You can't teach it. That's why you're here. Don't forget that." The driver pulled off. City lights slid across his face as we rode in silence for a while. Every time I thought about saying something, I remembered I was just a guy he'd pulled from a video. So I stayed quiet. He didn't. "You close with your father?" he asked suddenly. The question came out of nowhere. No easing in. No context. "Not really," I said. "He was around, but not present, if that makes sense." He nodded like it made too much sense. "I can see that on you," he said. "I know that energy. Men like us spend our whole lives waiting for somebody to say, 'I'm proud of you,' and actually mean it." He turned and looked at me in a way that felt too direct for the back seat of a truck. "I'm proud of you," he said. "For real. You stepped up. You didn't choke. That means something." I stared out the window so he wouldn't see whatever flashed across my face. It's hard to explain what that does to you, hearing it from someone whose posters were on your wall when your own father didn't talk like that. It doesn't feel like a compliment. It feels like a hook. By the second week, there was a rhythm. Days were sound check, interviews, rehearsal tweaks. Nights were the show, then debriefs where Will would run through what he thought worked and what didn't, often with his hand on my shoulder, steering me around like a piece of equipment. He always noticed me. Too much. If I was late to sound check by 5 minutes, he'd make a joke about it on the mic. "Look who finally showed up, my star player." Everyone would laugh. It felt like being singled out and protected at the same time. If I did something he liked, an improvised run, a harmony line, he'd stop the band, throw his arms around me, tell the room, "Y'all see what my man's doing? That's why he's with me. That's why he's special. Special. Special, special, like a mantra." The hotel pattern started around then. At first I didn't notice. You're too tired on tour to pay attention to where you sleep. A bed is a bed. But a couple cities in, I realized my room number always started with the same floor as his. "Is this on purpose?" I asked one of the coordinators when we checked into Chicago, and I saw our keys both had a 14 at the front. She shrugged. "He wants you close," she said. "Late night run-throughs, last-minute notes. Don't overthink it. You're lucky. Some guys don't even get the same hotel." Lucky. That's the word they use when they're trying to make you grateful for something that doesn't feel like a choice. The first time he came to my room, it was almost 2 a.m. I was half asleep, Netflix asking if I was still watching. The knock was soft but specific. 3 quick taps, a pause, then 2 more. I thought it was security at first. I checked the peephole. Will, in a hoodie and sweats, cap pulled low. I opened the door. "Everything good?" I asked. He smiled, brushed past me without waiting for an answer, and sat on the edge of my bed like it was his. "You tell me," he said. "You looked off tonight?" I closed the door. "Off how?" He shrugged. "You were thinking too much," he said. "Don't think. Feel me. That's your job, to move with me. If I go left, you go left. If I sit in the pain, you sit in the pain. You don't get shy up there, my guy. You wanted this." The way he said it made it sound less like a question and more like a charge I didn't remember signing. He patted the bed next to him. Sit. Every nerve in my body lit up with a weird mix of flattery and discomfort. I sat. He talked for almost an hour. Not about bowing technique, not about arrangements, about loyalty, about how the industry was full of snakes, about how everyone wanted something, about how rare it was to have someone pure on the team. You know how many people I turned down before you? He asked, eyes slightly too bright. They wanted the spot, but they didn't have the right spirit. You do. Don't let fear talk you into betraying me. Betraying you how? I asked. He tilted his head, studied my face like he was trying to memorize it. By doubting me, he said finally, by listening to the wrong voices, by forgetting who opened the door for you. When he finally left, the room felt different, like his presence had rearranged something invisible. I slept badly after that, even though nothing bad had happened. Just words, a late-night conversation, a man in my space when I wasn't ready for company. That's the thing nobody tells you about grooming. Most of it doesn't look like a crime. It looks like intimacy. It looks like being chosen. It looks like a powerful man staying in your orbit just long enough that when he steps away, you feel like you can't breathe right. As the tour moved on, Atlanta, Miami, Dallas, the pattern intensified. He'd call me into his SUV instead of letting me ride with the others. He'd ask what I was doing on our off days, then tell me to cancel it so we could work on stuff. He'd bring up my family, my childhood, the years I'd been broke, like he was building a profile he could refer back to whenever he wanted to remind me what I owed him. And every city, without fail, our keys landed us on the same floor. By the time we got to Vegas, no one even said it out loud anymore. It was just understood. He was the star. I was his violinist. And wherever he slept, I wasn't far behind. Vegas didn't feel real even before everything went wrong. From the moment we landed, it all felt turned up, too loud screens, slot machines, people shouting at nothing. The hotel they put us in was one of those glass towers where the carpet never seems new, but never seems old either. Like it's been cleaned so many times, it forgot what color it started as. Big show, one of the managers said as we rolled our bags through the lobby. Will wants tonight perfect. Will wanted a lot of things. At check-in, they handed out room keys in a little assembly line. When I got to the desk, the woman frowned at her screen. Your bag isn't showing, she said. What do you mean? I asked. Housekeeping says they never received it, she said. Could have been misrouted from the truck. We'll track it down. My bag had my clothes, my extra strings, and my room key card in the front pocket. It should have bothered me more than it did. On tour, you get used to things going missing. Sleep, meals, personal space. They promised to send a new key up after sound check. I said okay, and tried to pretend it didn't feel like losing something important. That night, the Vegas crowd was the loudest we'd had so far. From the first note, they were on their feet. Will leaned all the way into it. Jokes, stories, half confessions about falling short and learning from pain. When he teared up at one point, people in the front row sobbed like they knew him personally. I stood a few feet away with my violin under my chin, bow moving on autopilot, watching his silhouette against the spotlights. Every time he looked over at me, I felt the beam of it, like there wasn't anyone else on that stage. After the show, backstage was chaos. Hugs, photos, staff barking orders about tomorrow. My head was foggy from the noise and adrenaline. Got your new key, a runner said, appearing at my elbow and pressing a card into my hand. Room 1708, they found your bag too. It'll be up there waiting. Thanks, I said. I don't know why the room number stuck in my head. It just did. Maybe because I didn't have anything else to hang on to in that moment. The hallway outside 1708 was quieter than I expected. Thick carpet swallowed my footsteps. The only sound was the soft hum of the air conditioning and the distant ding of elevators. I slid the key into the slot. Green light. The lock clicked. The first thing that hit me was the smell. Not just the hotel's usual citrus cleaner scent. Underneath that, something sharper. Alcohol, disinfectant. A hint of something that reminded me of waiting rooms and latex gloves. The second thing was the light. The bathroom door was half open, fluorescent tube buzzing, throwing a strip of sickly blue across the carpet. The main lamps were off, but the room wasn't dark. It felt staged, like someone had left it mid-scene. My duffel bag sat by the dresser, unzipped. On the bed, there were things I hadn't left there. A pack of wipes, an empty beer bottle on its side, a ring of moisture staining the runner, a red backpack I didn't recognize slouched against the pillows. An earring, small and silver, glinting in the lamp's standby light. My stomach dropped. On the desk, more. Papers folded in half, the top one clearly a hospital discharge form with a stranger's name and dates I couldn't make myself focus on. Next to it, an orange pill bottle, cap off, half full of tablets. The label was facing away from me. I didn't need to read it to feel my skin crawl, but I did anyway. Not my name, not my prescription. HIV medication. I heard my own breathing get louder. There was a piece of hotel stationery propped up against the lamp base. My name was written across it in neat, looping handwriting. I picked it up with fingers that didn't feel steady. I'll be back no later than 5:30. Just us. The heart at the end was small and almost childish. That somehow made it worse. For a few seconds, my brain tried to take the easy exit. Wrong room. Mix-up. Housekeeping. Someone was here before, that's all. But my bag was there. My clothes, my rosin, my spare strings. Whoever had been in this room hadn't stumbled into it by accident. They'd waited until it was mine. I thought about the lost key, the way everyone had shrugged it off, the way my room always landed on Will's floor like gravity. I took a step back without meaning to. The air felt thicker, like the walls had moved closer. I didn't feel like I was in a hotel anymore. I felt like I'd walked onto a stage I hadn't rehearsed for. Something in me snapped into a kind of cold focus. I grabbed my violin case, backed out of the room, and let the door close on the bed, the backpack, the note with the heart. I didn't call management. I didn't call anyone from the tour. I went straight to the elevators and hit L so many times my thumb hurt. On the ride down, I stared at my reflection in the mirrored walls and tried to decide which was worse. I stayed downstairs longer than I needed to. After the report, after watching the footage, after getting handed a new key to a room on the 10th floor, I just lingered, sat in one of those lobby chairs that are more for show than comfort, staring at the fake plants and marble. I didn't want to go back up there, not to 15, not to 10, not to any floor in a building where people could walk into your space like that and call it access. I must have looked messed up because the clerk kept glancing over like she wanted to ask if I was okay and decided not to. Eventually, I couldn't sit anymore. I stood, key card in my hand, and walked toward the elevators. The doors slid open with a soft chime. Will Smith was inside. No entourage this time, no security wall. Just him, hoodie up, cap low, hands in his pockets like he was any other tired guest. He clocked me immediately. "There he is," he said, like we'd planned this. "My guy, you coming up?" My feet hesitated on the threshold. "I was just going to my new room," I said. They moved me. He lifted his eyebrows like he already knew why and wanted to see how I'd say it. "Yeah, I heard," he said. "Come on, ride with me, we should talk." He stepped back to make space. The doors started to close. I stepped in before they could decide for me. As soon as the car started moving, the silence changed. The soft jazz coming from the ceiling speakers felt too loud. "You all right?" he asked, eyes on the floor numbers. "Honestly?" I said. "No." He nodded slowly. "They told me you had concerns," he said, "about your room." "That's one way to put it," I said. He looked at me then, really looked, like he was checking which version of me he was riding with, the grateful one or the problem. "Stuff like that," he said, "you bring it to me. You don't run to hotel security. That's family business." Somebody with tour credentials used my key and staged my bed, I said. That's not family business. That's a violation. The word hung in the elevator, heavy. He didn't flinch, didn't apologize, didn't say, "What? Who?" He just sighed like I was making his night harder than it needed to be. "You're on the artist floor," he said. "People move in and out of rooms all the time. You see some wipes and a backpack and you're ready to call the cops. Come on, man. You know how that looks?" "How does it look?" I asked. "Like you're not built for this," he said. The elevator dinged. 15, his floor. He stepped out. I should have gone down to 10. Instead, I followed him. He walked straight to 1510, his door. The "Do Not Disturb" sign was gone now. He tapped his card, pushed the door open, and held it there, looking back at me. "You want to know what's really going on?" he said. "Come inside. Let's clear the energy." That phrase, "clear the energy," made my skin crawl. But every part of my life that wasn't broken depended on this door. So I walked through it. His room was bigger than mine. Of course it was. Corner suite, city lights pouring in through wide windows. The bed was made, perfect hotel folds. No wipes, no bottles, no notes. He let the door swing shut behind us with a soft click. "First rule," he said, dropping his hoodie on a chair, "you don't embarrass the family in public. If something's off, you come to me. Not security, not management, me." I stood near the entrance, feeling like a kid called into the principal's office. "I did what they tell you to do when you feel unsafe," I said. "I reported it." He shook his head. "You felt special until it got uncomfortable," he said. "Now you feel unsafe. Those are not the same thing." He nodded toward my violin case. One of the assistants must have brought it up. It was sitting by the sofa. "Play for me," he said. "If you're gonna stay, you gotta shake this off." I don't think... His voice didn't get louder, but it got sharper. "Hey," he said, "you know how many people want to be in this room? And you're up here talking like you don't know what you signed up for? You said you were all in, so be all in. Perform." That word again. Perform. I walked over to the case, snapped it open, and lifted the violin out. The wood felt colder than it should have. "What do you want to hear?" I asked. He waved a hand. "Play that thing from tonight," he said. "The one where you almost cried on stage." I started, slow, breathing with it, trying to let the muscle memory take over. He began to move around the room, not dancing, just pacing. From the window to the bed, from the bed to the bathroom door, tracing a loose loop around me. Every so often he'd stop and listen hard, eyes closed, like he was checking if I still matched whatever story he'd built in his head about us. "Yeah," he murmured. "That's it. Don't pull back. You pull back, the whole thing falls apart." The air in the room thickened. Heat from the lights, heat from his body passing close, heat from my own fear. "Louder," he said. "You were louder out there. Don't get shy now, it's just me, just us." I pushed more into the strings. The notes filled the suite. That's when I noticed the corner. By the window, the shadows didn't sit right. The curtains threw a shape on the wall that had nothing to do with the fabric. Taller, narrower, sharp at the top where a head should be. Two dull glints where eyes could be, catching just enough city light to exist. Every time the bow moved across the strings, every time Will's voice cut through the air, that shape seemed to lean in a little more. Interested, hungry. Will stopped beside the bed, turned back to face me, and opened his eyes. "You feel that?" he said. "That's not luck. That's not talent. That's access. That's what I give people when I bring them in. You don't throw that away because a couple of objects in a room freaked you out." Behind him, the shadow tilted its head, like it was waiting to see what I'd choose. The thought slammed into me. I am not just performing for him. My fingers slipped. The violin gave a harsh, broken sound and went silent. The room froze. Will's jaw clenched. His eyes flicked, just for a second, past my shoulder toward the window. His shoulders dropped the way someone's do when they're listening to a voice only they can hear. When he looked back at me, something was gone from his face. The intensity, the pitch, all of it smoothed over. "You're not ready," he said quietly. "For what?" My voice came out thin. "To be where you say you want to be," he said. "To really be in the room. People love the idea until they see what it costs. Then they run." He walked over, picked up his hoodie, shook it out. "We'll finish this run without you," he said, like we were discussing swapping a song in the set. "Tour's shifting, different direction." "You're firing me?" I asked. He smiled, small and tired. "Think of it as the door closing," he said. "You gotta look inside. Most people never do. That's your blessing." He moved to the door, hand on the handle. Before he opened it, his gaze slid once more to that wrong patch of dark by the window. Whatever was there felt satisfied. The pressure in the air eased just enough for me to breathe again. "You're still special," he said over his shoulder. "Just not for here." Then he stepped out into the hallway and was gone. I stood there with the violin in my hands, the last note still buzzing in the strings, staring at the corner by the glass. When I finally forced myself to look straight at it, there was nothing unusual to see, just curtains, just shadows, just regular dark. I told myself that's all it had ever been. I told myself that until the night I read the lawsuit, saw Brian's name, and realized the room had never been meant for just one story. They cut me the next morning. No meeting with Will, no real conversation. Just a knock, a clipboard, and a paper cup of coffee. "Tour's shifting," the manager said in the hallway. "Different direction. Nothing personal." "Is this about last night?" I asked. He stared at some point over my shoulder. "It's about fit," he said. "We need people who can handle pressure. People who don't overreact." There it was. Overreact. The word you use when you want the problem to be the person, not what happened. He flipped a page. "Accounting's got a small buyout," he added. "Couple weeks' pay. You sign a standard release, can't talk behind the scenes. Everybody walks away happy. Most people would be grateful." "An NDA," I said. He shrugged. "Just business. The only thing worse than walking away from an opportunity is being the guy out there saying crazy stuff he can't prove. That never ends well." He left the papers with me. By checkout, they were still blank. I went home. The first night back, I lay awake, replaying the suite. The pacing, the commands, the shadow leaning in, like it was judging my performance. I kept telling myself it was stress, that my brain had turned fear into a shape because shapes are easier to blame than people. Then I saw the clips, fan footage from later shows. Same monologues about forgiveness, same soft lighting, and standing where I used to stand, another violinist. Will next to him, hand on his shoulder, eyes closed, like he was drinking something in. They hadn't changed the part, just the body in the slot. For a while, I convinced myself that was the end. Weird story. Bad night, close call. Then one headline cut through everything. Will Smith sued by tour violinist. Las Vegas incident at center of case. I read every word. Electric violinist, getting close, special connection, missing bag with his key, coming back to a room he didn't recognize, wipes, beer bottle, red backpack, hospital discharge papers, HIV meds with a stranger's name, a note promising just us at a certain time. They printed Will's response too. False, baseless, reckless. I remembered being told it would be reckless to talk about something I couldn't prove. People argued in the comments, called Brian brave, or a liar, or hungry for attention. I didn't say anything, because I knew that room, I knew that pattern, I knew what it felt like to be chosen, then treated like trash the second you saw too much. Believe me or don't. Call me bitter, jealous, dramatic, it doesn't matter. All I know is this. I was in that orbit before his name ever trended. I felt something in the corner before anyone else filed papers. And whatever was watching us that night didn't stop existing when they wrote reckless allegations in a press release. It just started looking for the next performer. So if another story pops up on your feed, another crazy accusation about another untouchable man, you can tell yourself it's nothing. Just check your own corners before you turn the lights off. Make sure the dark is still just dark.